Welcome to Behavioral Health Today, a podcast brought to you by the Triad Network. This podcast is designed to share trending topics occurring within the world and our communities and bring them a behavioral and mental health perspective.
Welcome to Behavioral Health Today. I'm your host, Sharlee Dixon, and joining me today is Peter Fenger. Hi, Peter.
Hey, Sharlee, how are you?
Doing great. Welcome to BHT Bytes, where we break down mental health and societal trends into quick, digestible conversations, keeping it informative, relaxed, and relevant. Today, we're diving into a topic that is absolutely unavoidable right now. I mean, you open your phone, turn on the TV, or even just check in with your friends. It's everywhere. We're talking about sports betting and its massive, rapidly growing impact on our lives and our culture. Seriously, let's think about this. You can't watch 2 minutes of a football game, a basketball game, or really any sport without seeing an ad for FanDuel, DraftKings, Caesar Sportsbook, or some other betting site or app. And it's not just the ads, it's in everyday talk as well. Almost every person I know who watches sports has been talking about their latest parlay or how they cashed in or maybe how they got burned really bad on this last big game on Sunday. It's completely changed how we engage in sports. And it really got me wondering, how is this monumental shift truly impacting us as a society? For some quick historical context, sports betting is nothing new. Its history is ancient, dating back thousands of years to the Greeks and the Romans wagering on the Olympics and the gladiator games. Fast forward to the early 20th century, and betting pools were everywhere. Think for the Super Bowl, like the calendars. Betting pools are everywhere, but concerns about corruption and match fixing led to big government interventions. This ultimately culminated in the Professional and Amateur Sports Protection Act of 1992, or PASPA, which effectively shut down sports betting nationwide, and except in a few states like Nevada. But then came the internet. Offshore betting sites popped up, making it easier to place wagers from your home. The real game changer, though, was in 2018 when the Supreme Court overturned PASPA. That decision was the starting pistol for the massive industry we see today. Suddenly, states had the green light, leading to the surge in mobile betting apps, sportsbooks, and the million-dollar partnerships with professional leagues that are dominating our airwaves. Now, as I mentioned earlier, the ads are polished. They star our favorite athletes and celebrities, boasting about huge wins and turning a small bet into a fortune. But you know what they don't mention is the dark side of all of that, the not so pleasant rewards. Things like addiction, financial ruin, relationship concerns, and serious mental health problems, correlating with the rise of gambling addiction diagnosis. So, my thoughts around this, Peter, with these potentially detrimental side effects in the shadows, I kind of have to ask, why do you think folks are participating at such a high rate? Is it just the easy access? It's everywhere. Is it the excitement? Is the promise of easy money? What do you think?
Yeah, honestly, I think it just comes down to not only it being accessible. I mean, we think of our phones and already there's a lot of addiction there, but you
Hmm.
take uh, one of the most addictive pastimes of
Yeah,
sports and you put it on a platform that is just highly
also
addictive,
addicting.
that creates a perfect system for sports betting to get so large. Also, it is a massive industry. I know that between 2018 and 2023, there was $300 billion were spent on sports betting. So this is not like a small thing. Their pockets are big enough to show up in both advertising as well as integration into sports.
Right. And it's that integration of sports that I find to be quite interesting because it's not just the ads that I mentioned, with the celebrities in them. The uniforms are now starting to have like a FanDuel or a DraftKings or whatever that
Yes.
little logo is. And so it's also brought directly onto the players themselves and inside of the
Right.
arenas. And so it's no longer just we don't watch, they're in the commercial. So maybe we miss it in the commercial, but it's on the uniforms. It's everywhere in the game.
Yeah, and it's integrated. You're right. Like they place QR codes next to the scoreboard in order
Yeah.
to place immediate bets. The ways to bet has gotten more instant. Our access to betting has been more instant. And then also, I believe that it's being targeted to a younger generation. And
Mhm.
because of that, people are getting into sports betting younger.
I agree. I agree. Like I've got even some family members who are not even of age yet, and they
Mhm.
know all about making a parlay, and they want to talk to, other family members like, what did you bet on? Did you bet for this game? This is what I put. This is what I think. And while I can see some positives, I mean, there are there, you get more
Mhm.
involved in the game, and you feel like you have a personal stake in what's happening. Like you said, bringing in the younger people and that focus on young people is kind of the scariest thing, because you've got a long way to go if you're, young, you're 18, 21, depending on the state and what's that legal age. You've got a long way of betting in your future if you're starting so young.
Absolutely. And again, like, when we talk about how it's integrated within the sports
Mhm.
organizations themselves have incentive, right? And they
Absolutely.
find that people will watch boring games if there's money
Hmm.
involved. And we know
Absolutely.
that not only are there contracts signed for these professional organizations in order to
Hmm.
run ads with them, but there's also data that's being shared. So, for example, the NFL, not only did they sign a $132 million contract in order to
Hmm.
partnership with FanDuel and DraftKings, but they're also paid $120 million annually just to share their data analytics with those sports
Right.
books. So
Right.
there's a
Right.
mutual benefit on both sides there. Everybody wants to bet because everyone's making money.
Absolutely. And so while of course businesses and in sports leagues, media outlets, ESPN is making all this money on the TV ads, for over $400 million on TV ads. The companies are
Right.
doing great, they're doing well, but at what cost to the American people? Like, do you think that sports leagues and media outlets, do they have an ethical responsibility to balance that level of promotion with more warnings or resources for
Mm.
problem gambling?
You know what? It's kind of interesting. Again, I think you're kind of pointing toward who takes the blame.
Yeah.
Now, I get like that the organizations themselves, like their job is to grow, right? And find
Yeah.
opportunities of growth. And if that means it's partnering with some of these sports books, then, everybody makes money. I think what's starting to happen is that the organizations themselves are starting to get a little bit more conflicted with their investment in sports betting, right? At some point, how do you keep games fair if you're also in
Mm.
alignment with sports
Yeah.
betting, right?
Yeah.
And I think that for them, it's ethical for them to keep things separate, right? So, in my mind, I don't necessarily feel like the NFL or MLB is responsible for maybe the outcomes of sports betting.
Mhm.
But you're talking about a pretty significant challenge, right? You're talking about
Right.
hundreds of thousands of bankruptcies because of sports betting. And I guess maybe the question is how are the sports betting apps getting their customers is, I think, where the ethical part comes down to.
Yeah.
I know in my own research for this that the the types of players that sports books are looking for are the ones who are most vulnerable to bankruptcy. So,
Mm.
just as example, a statistic last year said that 87% of gambling profits were based off of 5% of gamblers. And
Wow.
so that tells us that there's analytics that these sports books have in order to
Mm.
target the most vulnerable, right? And
Absolutely.
then I guess the conversation on the other side is that if they have analytics that can target the most vulnerable, do they have analytics that can target those that are in most need for help?
Mm. That poses a really good question, because it's tough as a business. Your point of your business is to grow, right? But at the
Yes.
same time, I do think that there should be at least some level of responsibility to show the other side, like, here is help if you need it. Like, here is the gambling addiction hotline. I haven't seen the commercials for it, not to say that there are not there, but I haven't seen that same level of vigorousness, I guess, in pushing, here's some help for people that you might think have a problem.
Mm.
And so I do wonder the same, like, are there the same analytics of those 5% to say, okay, these are the people that might need some help? Or are they
Right.
even do they even look at that ethical responsibility as their own responsibility? Or is it just, if you know you have a problem, it's up to you to take care of yourself?
Right. And I'm sure that there are protocols, and the examples that I've seen, like there's communication. So when you are a gambler and you bet enough money, you get paired up with a VIP host. And the
Okay.
VIP host's job is to take your money and place it on the bigger bets in order for
Mhm.
you to win more money. But in that, those same people that are gambling the most are the ones that are losing the most, have a VIP host. Those folks have somewhat of an ethical obligation to understand whether or not they're gambling within their means.
Mm.
And though they might be behind on their mortgage, the only question that they're really asking is, are you betting within your means?
Right, right. And when we first started talking about this and the idea of the VIP agents came about, I didn't know that was even a thing. The people that I know
Mhm.
bet are usually making little small wagers just to kind of make the game fun. They like sports, and so they want to just feel more connected to it, not necessarily
Mhm.
doing it as a means like that they have a gambling problem, an issue with the gambling. They just think it's a fun thing to
Yeah,
do. And
sure.
so the idea of a person that is almost assigned to you and that just asks that generic question, or is this within your means? Someone who has an addiction problem may not be able to say, no, this isn't within my means, because it is not. In their minds, it is, this is fine, everything is good. I am enjoying this. They get some level of satisfaction out of doing it.
Right.
And so that's that to me, I do think that that's kind of where another level of ethical responsibility lies. But again, people are just doing their jobs. It's a tough spot to be in all around. We'll be right back after a word from our sponsor.
Whether you're a longtime or first-time listener to Behavioral Health Today, you're probably familiar with Triad, the company that brings you this podcast. But you may not know that Triad also hosts a community for current and aspiring behavioral and mental health professionals, featuring trending content and education and career resources, all for free. If you are a behavioral or mental health professional, or you're studying to become one, join more than 80,000 people on Triad by claiming your free professional account today. Visit us at hellotriad.com/BHT. That's hellotriad.com/BHT and join the Triad community today.
It is, and I think it's also unique,
Hmm.
when there is drugs involved, we hold doctors accountable.
Yeah,
When there are drinks involved, we hold bars and restaurants accountable.
absolutely.
But when gambling's involved, we put 100% of the blame on the gambler,
Person. Yes. Yes.
right?
We give
And
them all the
and I
responsibility. Absolutely.
I think as I've learned more about this, I recognize that the tactics that gambling apps are using are predatory,
Mm-hmm.
and there needs to be some bit of a shared responsibility. Again, if you have the
Agree.
apps to understand who are winning and you try to weed those folks out, and you understand who are betting the most and losing the most, therefore, there has to be a degree in there to where you can identify those that need the most help. And again,
Right.
from the statistics that I've seen, it says that 1% of Americans have a gambling addiction. 2 to 3% have a mild or moderate gambling problem. And
Mhm.
just to understand how many people that amounts to, that's up to 7.5 to 10.5 million people.
That's a lot of people.
That's a lot of
That's a
people
lot of people.
that are gambling addiction or have gambling habits.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
And when you just hear that 1% or the 2 to 3%, you're like, oh, that's nothing. But thinking about it in the amount of people, that's, if we just kind of break that in the middle, that's what, 8.5, 9 million
Right.
people in this country that have some sort of an issue with gambling. And like you said, there are bits and pieces everywhere. So with the drinking, there are, even when there are ads for alcohol, there's a little piece at the end. If you think that you or someone you know have an issue with this is the number to call. I don't know that I've seen that with any of the sports betting, the gambling. None of those had that little caveat to call. And there are support groups. There are,
Mhm.
Gamblers Anonymous. There are organizations that soul's mission is to, to help those who are having a problem. And so to not plug the other side of that, I think that's where, for me, where the ethical issues
Yeah.
abound. Like you're not even offering so that people can even take in themselves and think, maybe I will call somebody because maybe this is a problem. Like there isn't even any
Sure.
inkling that it is a potential issue, that there is a problem.
Sure. Yeah. And again, I think, even just beyond those that are of legal age and are able to bet responsibly, there are
Hmm.
apps that go beyond that into some unethical territories. So I want to
Okay.
highlight an app that's called Flip.
Okay.
And the way that they're able to get around state laws like Massachusetts is that they advertise it being it's a social betting with friends. But in the app, you're able to get in-game currency. So you
Mm.
spend real money to get in-game currency, and then when you win bets, you get this fake currency that then you can cash out for
Cash
money.
out.
Now,
Hmm.
the reason why this is highlighted for Massachusetts because their gambling age is 21,
Mm.
but you only have to be of 18 years old to use Fliff. So even apps around that again is predatory to younger
Hmm.
audiences are still trying to get around the whole betting thing with still being a betting app.
Right, right. And so then
Right.
again, you are purposely seeking out younger people who just by design, their brains aren't even developed enough to
Right.
say, I am really betting. This is a real
Right.
sports betting thing. This isn't just socially, doing some things with my
Right.
friends.
And I think it goes even more in that universities are now
Mm,
beginning to work with betting companies.
yes. Yes.
Because again, you even think about just folks going to college.
Hmm.
That too
Right.
could be an earlier entrance to betting because you're
Yeah.
betting in universities
Hmm.
than you would
Hmm.
have had, professional sports. So
Right.
it just, the line keeps on going farther and farther back
Yeah.
to who is
Blurring,
the
blurring.
ideal, and it's starting to target younger people. That is the generation that is looking forward to those parlays.
Right. And they are, because they've seen so much of it, it is so much in their face and has been such a
Right.
feature. Not that sports betting, like I said, is nothing new, none of this stuff other than the internet app piece of it. That's the newer piece. But sports betting has been around forever, but it's not like I know when I was growing up, it's not necessarily anything that everybody talked about. It wasn't something that everybody saw.
Mhm.
It wasn't, there were no ads for it. And so with this
Right.
current younger generation, they're growing up seeing these things and it is becoming normalized in their minds. Also, the safety of players, too, because now I'm at this game
Yes.
and the player didn't do whatever I needed them to do, and I've lost all this money. What then happens to players, not just professional ones, but college athletes as well, that are much more accessible to their audiences? They're going to class and just around. They don't have bodyguards, or, they don't have that. They're just regular kids outside of their football field or their stadium or whatever. And so what does the safety piece of that look like for players?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good point you're bringing up because we have seen a lot of threats being made online
Hmm.
because of, because of not making parlays, et cetera, et cetera. I think it does create some risks,
Hmm.
especially for college athletes,
Yes.
especially for college athletes. And again, if you're just one of the students that doesn't have, access to bodyguards, et cetera, and the facilities
Yes.
that can be offered by a professional team, I think it puts them up for some risk.
It definitely does because, at any given point, I went to the University of South Carolina. I would see football players all the time. I had football players in my classes. Like they were everywhere. It's not like they were protected really other than themselves. They, were grouped together, but they were much more
True.
accessible. And that can become very scary for a player who's, trying to live out their dream and and
Yeah.
some potential fan that has lost money
Yes.
can come after them. It's scary.
I'm also kind of curious about the ethics of the sports as well. Like if you are a athlete
Mm-hmm.
and you're not making any money, you're a college athlete, you're able to bet on your own game. Are athletes throwing games in order to win
That's
more
an interesting
money?
question.
Like, does that kind of
That's an
play a
interesting
part in
question.
it?
Yeah, it should, but I don't even know how you protect against it because again, you're online on these apps and God, I hadn't really thought about that at all, Peter, especially when we're seeing so many upset, that happen,
Sure.
every
Right.
Saturday or, every weekend in college football. Mm,
I mean, I'm sure
interesting.
that there are rules around, not betting on your own game. Look, we've
Yeah.
seen professional athletes like Pete Rose get removed from the Hall of Fame because of
Hmm.
betting, right? I just think it might be a little bit harder now. Maybe you place a bet with somebody else and then
Yeah.
everybody gets rich. Like something like that could easily, I watched a couple games before the World Series and the Yankees looked like they were fumbling the ball just enough to where I'm like, man, maybe somebody had money on that.
Mm-hmm.
There was a whole storyline last year about Pat Mahomes and working with the referees, and he has a
Yeah.
reputation with some favoritism with the referees. But does that come
Right.
into sports betting? I think we're getting a little bit more into theoretical stuff. Another point I'd like to make is really like the efficacy of the states themselves. Like I know that there are laws within each state that put some limitations on people being able to bet recklessly. I know there are
Yes.
certain states that require you to bet with actual money, but in that
Hmm.
same state, there have been cases with folks being able to bet with credit. Obviously, when you're betting with credit, you don't have to have the money to pay that line.
Mm-mm.
That's going to lead to bankruptcy. And
Absolutely.
we just talked about Massachusetts and their gambling age and some of
Hmm.
the apps that are getting outside of that. I think just even states enforcing their own laws is a start.
It is. It absolutely is a start to changing the things. I don't think that many people see the sports betting as a problem. And so while the
Mhm.
laws may be on the books, they, like you mentioned, they are not being enforced. Oh, it's just a little few bets. Like it's nothing big. People can win money. It's everywhere. It's not seen as anything just yet that is negative, that is causing people a lot of harm. And so the
Right.
stories that we're hearing, they feel isolated, but I am curious about really what is, where are the real problems? Because I don't know that they are being advertised as much. Even when I started kind of doing research on this, I asked a few people that I know that do sports bet, like, so, why do you do this? Are you concerned about the money that you spend? And they were like, Shirley, it's really not that big of a deal. Like, you're making more out of this
Mhm.
than it is. Like, don't go on your show talking negative.
Yeah.
So they like,
Yeah.
I don't know
Yeah.
that society sees it as some potential level of harm. It's just seen as being fun, and we're trying to be more
Yeah.
connected to these games.
Yeah, and I have other friends that do sports betting, and in their mind, they're betting with money that they had won previously, so they're
Yes, yes, that
ahead,
too.
right? And
Hmm.
so in their
Hmm.
minds, they're playing with like phony baloney money, right?
Yes.
But in reality, like you're still placing $2,000 on parlays just
Right.
because one of them popped and you ended up with 5K
Hmm.
doesn't necessarily mean that the bets that you're placing are done in a safe way. Not that
Right.
I think that they've got a gambling problem, but I think that that is one path of thinking that people are able to kind of work around being able to place such high bets without
Hmm.
necessarily thinking that there's a risk because
Right.
they're playing with house money.
Right, right. I heard the same thing, that this is like, oh, these are just I placed a few bets and I won big and now I'm just betting again. It's not that serious.
Right.
Again, it is seen right now as there isn't a problem. And so my concern is just that things will continue to balloon and keep growing until you can't, keep a cap on it. And so that is kind of where my
Yeah.
concern and why I wanted to talk about it.
Well, not only are we going to have an epidemic of bankruptcies and people coming
Hmm.
forward pointing toward gambling as a source, because I
Yeah.
know that there is already an extra 100,000 bankruptcies because of sports betting in the United States. I
Wow.
think that we're going to have an entire generation of folks that are going to get exposed to it and
Hmm.
recognize the darker side to it the same way that within our generation we saw smoking.
Absolutely.
Because
Absolutely.
for
I
a
agree.
long time, smoking was heavily advertised. We've seen celebrities as well as medical professionals advertising smoking, and slowly that got rolled back after we saw the dangers of it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. So I hate to wait for us to react, but at this moment it seems like that's kind of where we are. I mean, because in general,
Sure.
betting it's something that humans have participated in since the creation of competitive games. The statistics that we've shared today are pretty sobering. They were for me. 87% of the industry's revenue is created by only 5% of gamblers. There's been increases in the amount of gambling addiction diagnoses, increases in the amount of bankruptcies created by gambling debt. And so the tactics also, like things like the VIP programs that we've discussed, they seemed engineered to keep those few people betting. Sports betting is weaved into the fabric of the game, like I mentioned, but our job is to never forget the line between entertainment and compulsion. We need to be just as vocal about the resources for help as the sports books are about the odds for a big win. So, as you see those ads, the QR codes, and the jerseys these coming weeks, think critically about the system they represent. If you or someone you know is struggling, help is available. Thank you for joining us today on this episode of BHT Bytes, and we'll see you next time on Behavioral Health Today.
We appreciate all the support from our community, and if you like our show, one of the best ways you can support it is by giving us a 5-star rating and leaving a review. Behavioral Health Today is a podcast part of the Tried Behavioral Health Network, all rights reserved.